everyone, and welcome to the Jeff Bullish Show. Today I have with me Suman Kanuganti. Now, Suman is a two-time venture-backed entrepreneur, an AI enthusiast, an accessibility champion awarded Forbes 40 Under 40 and Smithsonian's Top Innovator to Watch Awards. He is the founder and chief executive of his latest startup, Personal.ai. And I'm really, really curious about what he's doing there. So we're going to find out more soon. He's a creative entrepreneur who loves robots, technology, and humans. Suman is most known for founding Aira, where he scaled AI and AR technology to assist the blind and low vision community. But as a CEO of Personal.ai, Suman is focused on empowering every individual to own their intelligence and be their own thought leader with an AI extension of their memory. And who wouldn't love to actually have super memory? So thanks, Suman, for joining the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here, and I'm intrigued what we're going to chat about today with the intersection and amplification of humanity by AI. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. It's wonderful to be here.
So, Suman, you're obviously very curious about AI, and also you're a serial entrepreneur. So where did the entrepreneurial spirit start from?
Entrepreneurial spirit started back when I was at Intuit. So I was telling earlier before we started the recording that I was at Intuit doing mostly product and mostly development. And, by background, I was an engineer. So, most of the stuff that I was passionate about is like creating new things and playing with the technology. So I guess Intuit, there was a moment in time where I started getting more and more energy when the products that you create is, touched and impactful to the people who are using it.
Right.
So later on, I chose to continue and, my career in creating these products and creating these experiences. Got my MBA, and then immediately jumped into the startup world of trying to identify some of the problems and then, solving them using the technology. So I think that's probably the genesis and the shift. It did not happen overnight. I think, probably my past experiences for the life, like try to push me into this entrepreneurial journey to do more. So definitely love when your products are creating like high impact to the people. It's something that gives me energy.
So that got you excited when you realized what you were doing was creating an impact in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So AI, let's go straight to AI. Seeing it's your domain name, personal.ai. And I'm very curious about how we can use AI to, I suppose, supercharge our humanity rather than take away our humanity.
Yep.
So where did the AI bug start from, the passion for AI that you've woven into your last startup and also very focused on this startup, Personal.ai? Where did the AI bug strike and when?
I think it's already striking, but AI for me isn't the starting point, at least for me. So in other words, I always went about, searching for the problems, right? I was telling about like, hey, what happened with your entrepreneurial journey? The most interesting thing about my previous company, Aira, was, it was a technology for people who are blind and low vision. And we used, essentially like Google glasses for people who are blind and leveraging that camera that is located on this wearable device. And like, oh, geez, like how awesome it would be to use that camera for people who cannot see, like almost like augmenting, humans with technology. So AI was part of that solution. AI wasn't, quote unquote, the starting point. So my philosophy always has been don't solve the human, you solve the problem, right? So if you focus on the right problem and AI becomes a part of the solution, then great. With Personal AI, we also started with a problem. And the problem that we were going after is, we exchange information, we exchange knowledge, we exchange trust with people around us for years. And, we develop these relationships. And if indeed we are able to access people through a digital medium that doesn't rely on their time, their capacity, their cognition, then it would be amazing. And the inspiration for this company came about when I lost my mentor, Larry Bach, and my desire to emotionally as well as intellectually have a conversation with him. It's like, oh man, it would be awesome if I had access to Larry's AI, right? So that
Yeah.
was the purpose of Personal AI, which is like, can we create a model that is so grounded in one person's truth, one person's fact, one person's opinion, that is stylistically in voice, is exactly sounds like that human being. And of course, AI was the solution. uh, and so I think to the point, it's never about the technology. Technology is always going to be a foundation. It's always about what are the problems that you can then solve with that foundational technology that we have. So AI will always be is going to stay. It's going to be here. It's already here.
Yeah. So really, you just saw AI as an enabler to solve a problem as one of the components of the technology that you needed.
Yeah, and I think it's not just about AI. It's just like any technology has the same characteristics.
Yeah.
It's gonna further enable things for you to either achieve efficiencies, create greater experiences, create greater comfort. But the most beautiful thing is humans are also pretty. We always think about, we are always like harsh on ourselves in terms of how fast we are adapting. But I tend to think humans are pretty good at adapting things, pretty good at adapting to the change, uh, pretty good at adapting to the change to the technology as well. So I think there will be a transition. There will be some pain points. People will reject a technology or an AI. People rejected internet a long time ago. People rejected computers at homes a while ago. And
Yep.
that's a thing of past now. I think AI is now going through that change. It's a shift. It's a transformation because it's a new medium. People are not comfortable, but it will take time.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people are afraid of change.
Yep.
And I think the older we get, sometimes the more set we get in our ways and thinking. So, yeah, adapting. I think humans are very adaptive, and that's why we've evolved. But sometimes it takes time for that, and people are afraid. Being afraid of change is, stops things being adapted. But for me, I see AI as being almost invisible over time. It will just be woven into the devices we use, the cars we drive,
Yep.
how we interact. So, I really like your comment too about that you lost your mentor, and you would love to continue to have conversations that would be deep dives into what he wrote or spoke about or what videos he had. And I've been thinking a lot about this too myself. I haven't done a startup on it, but what if I could get an avatar that looks like me, clone my voice, which sounds like me, and also then use AI to collate, organize all the content I've created. And I've created a lot of content. I've got nearly 200 podcasts, 6 million words, 3,000 or 4,000 articles on my personal blog, jeffbullis.com. How could I, and my memory's imperfect. I'm going, someone asked me a question about, how do you do email marketing? Sum it up in 10 points. I'd maybe struggle. I could do it, but the AI would do it in a matter of seconds almost, using the content of me.
Yeah.
And so I'm fascinated by that. And part of it is I really want to, I suppose, stalk my children for centuries, as long as I leave a web server on with the AI running, that they can ask questions of dad. Or dad could tell them what to do. So,
okay, I'll comment on many of those things that you mentioned. So 2 out of the 3 things that you mentioned, which is avatar, voice, and mind, right?
Yep.
Personal AI makes the mind and voice already possible today. Yes. Eventually, when the avatar technology is cheap enough, good enough for anybody to be able to create live, I think that will converge as well. But our focus has been the mind aspect of it, right? Your mind, your unique individuality, that your voice and your opinions and your facts. And you mentioned, dad AI. Oh, well, guess what? My child, who is 5 years old, she already has conversations with my AI. It has already gotten to a point where it's not just fun anymore. It's like, she prompts like, oh, let's ask dad AI, right? Because that
Right.
AI would probably know. You probably have forgotten. um, so the idea of like simply adding memory is now perpetual. It stays forever. This idea of like taking notes before was very clunky. Like, take multiple different notes in multiple different places and you don't know where you are searching for. And you just like write down 2 keywords because the fidelity or the time you never have to write like full things. But now imagine like all you have to do is if you write your professional background once, you don't have to like write it over and over again, right? And it just goes on and on in terms of like your content, your voice that you can build. But yeah, that's exactly what personal AI is, and it is available today.
Yeah, it's fascinating because essentially, the likes of the Peter Thiels of this world are talking about living to 160 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They're about transhumanism, where we transcend humanity.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that if you have AI organizing your content, your ideas from all the content you've created and the messaging you've done, which we'll get into in a minute, which is basically, and I'd love to find out more about how you use messaging and so on and an app. So, but the reality is the only limitation with an AI version of you is that you've got to make sure that the web server is still being paid for and the software is still running. Otherwise, it will disappear into the ether. So that's the other challenge with it. I'd be interested in your thoughts about that as well. So, Suman, tell us about how your app works at Personal.ai. And it seems to be, I've had a quick look at it. There's a great article on your website called Stacking and Training Playbook for Personal.ai. And it was very well written. I loved structure. So tell us about how you would start with Personal.ai. I'm curious.
Yeah. So if you normally understand AI and specifically around the AI services, you are likely having some experience where you go to a website and you enter a prompt or a question to be able to get an answer back, specifically ChatGPT and any of the large language models that exist. So majority of those models are like pre-trained models. In other
Yes.
words, somebody has trained it for you on your behalf using all the data and they did all the hard work. So that way consumers can benefit by, writing instructions and get value out of it. Now, you kind of give an example, like what are the 10 best suggestions, you would have for email marketing? Well, you can ask that to ChatGPT. And it is a composition of all the people that exist on the internet, so generally referred to as general knowledge, right?
Yes.
So personal AI is exactly the opposite. Personal AI starts with one, memory, and memory of an individual person, right? So think about any information, knowledge, facts, opinions of a person is taken from unstructured data and it goes through a process to structure it. And I will get to how a user would be able to do that. So, but the first part is like the memory. And the second part itself is the model. The model is not a large language model. We call it actually a personal language model. This model is grounded in the memory and it is not a pre-trained model. It's continuously training. So as the memory gets new memories, the model gets, updated almost overnight. And then, of course, there is an application layer on top of this model as well, where you use the application layer to, enter the memory or upload the memory to train your AI and use your AI. So where does the memory come from? If you ask me, well, that memory could be any authored data that you have historically. In your case, Jeff, you were mentioning about your newsletter, your content, your podcast, your authored books as well, autobiography if it exists, that could go in. So it's very advantageous for people who are actually creating content and journaling their lives for a period of time. It could be your emails as well, if that is a place where you actually had any meaningful data capture about you. So all that can go in. However, on the ongoing basis as well, you can essentially think about adding any memory to your AI that will be remembered forever on your behalf. And you can ask questions. You can instruct your AI to write content. You can use your AI to generate replies and responses. You can use your own AI for creating email drafts. The possibilities are, potentially endless at all the places that you have any digital footprint, any digital communication, like outbound digital communication. You can have your personal AI do that for you. You can still approve it or disapprove it, but at least it will give you a starting point that sounds like you.
Right. So let me ask a question regarding, and I'm curious about, is how do you choose what platforms or messaging apps that are yours, for example? Is because a lot of them, we've got a lot of apps we use. We use Slack, we use email, we use Facebook, we use, the list is almost endless now. We've got Google Docs where I journal every day. So how do we, because it sounds almost, for me, almost sounds overwhelming. How do you simplify that?
Yeah, so let's understand the problem on why we need to simplify first. So you mentioned Slack, email, Zoom, Google Apps, right? Like today, your life is compartmentalized. A part of it in Slack, a part of it is in emails, a part of it is in Google Apps, a part of it is in like Zoom, and part of it is in some other podcasts and some other places. There is aggregation of that data that is happening within the platform across multiple users, but there is not an aggregation that is happening for Jeff.
Yes.
For yourself. So the personal AI platform is kind of basically designed to, again, flip that narrative. It provides some existing integrations out of the box. For example, Google Documents, you mentioned, you have like tons of Google Documents. You can basically connect Google Drive and then, push all your data into Google Drive. Connect your email and then push all that email content as well as Slack content as well. But the reality is, specifically when it comes down to, things such as text messages in iMessage or WhatsApp messages or Slack for the matter, they don't make it easy. That's a fact. That's a reality.
Yes.
So we can do the best we can to capture the information and then make it beneficial to the user. But at the same time, the user can also take choices going forward to ensure whenever they're writing anything on a piece of internet, it could also be working in their favor if they can add that memory to their personal AI. Right? So there is work to be done for the simplification for the company, but there is also mindset that needs to be adapted by the people so that way they can benefit from them. Otherwise, you will only be creating companies AI. You will always be consuming. You'll always be a consumer rather than an asset. We think personal AI is an asset.
Yeah, I definitely. And I took some notes about the mindset part, which you just mentioned. And you said there are three key elements to the mindset approach that you need to have. Number one, never-ending learning mindset, which is great love that because I'm curious. I'm going, let's start this business or let's start this project and let's not get too attached to it, but let's just start the journey and see what happens and see what we learn along the way. Actually, it's the destination is actually not the most important thing. It's actually the journey.
The journey.
Yeah. The other part is make it part of your routine. So that's cool. In other words, can I take it? And so the other one which I like is play the long game. What can it do for me? Not today or tomorrow, but in 10 years. And for me, very much, I do love the concept of the long game. For me, for example, I started a blog in 2009, 6 million
Guess
words.
what? Like, you are already ahead in the game.
Sorry?
I was saying you are already ahead in the game. You already had that mindset from before.
Yeah. And the other thing too, what I've loved about it too, this long game, is that, and I love this quote by Bill Gates. He said that people overestimate what they can do in 12 months, but they underestimate what they can do in 10 years.
Hmm.
And what's exciting about that is over time, we've been able to create some very strong Google authority because of all the links to our site, which is part of the SEO thing. So we've built authority by playing a long game. And I do love that part of the long game. And I'd be interested in both of those three mindset elements. Curiosity is number one, part of your routine, and the long game. I'd be interested in your comments on all three, or just one that you like to choose.
That's interesting.
So routine, let's start with maybe routine. How do you weave it? So curiosity, I think, is a given. I get that. How would you weave Personal.ai into your routine?
Yeah. So one of the key pieces for personal AI experience to be in the routine is to be integrated into your daily experiences. What does that mean? One of the primary use cases for personal AI today is to have your AI draft these outbound communications for you for all the incoming messages that are coming at you, both personal and in the professional lives.
Right.
The thing is, you're already writing, you're already texting, you're already typing things, right? How beautiful is it for your personal AI to be the starting point and the ending point for every digital communication that happens out there?
Yep.
So I think it has to be integrated, and it also has to be ambient. In other words, the idea of journaling never worked out for me because the idea of journaling was not integrated into the life that I choose to live. But the idea of like texting and messaging and communicating with people is already integrated into my life. So I want that capture mechanisms to happen when it happens rather than me doing extra work to be able to capture those memories.
Right.
So that is what I mean, like make it part of your daily routine.
Okay. And play the long game. So what would Personal.ai do for you in 10 years' time?
One of the stories that I like to tell for that question is about, my previous company, Aira, when blind community started like testing it out, experimenting and providing the feedback. You get caught up in what are the things that you do today and how you can improve it. For example, oh, Suman, I go to this grocery store already, and then Ira had helped me, do that like 2x faster. But then they told me, but what's more fascinating for me was I realized that there was a ATM machine from Chase Bank in this grocery store that I go to every week for past 15 years. And I never knew that existed. So the most mind-blowing part is when you start to learn the unknowns of what the world has to offer and the vastness, you yourself can offer, then that's the beautiful part that you are like unlocking and touching into the potential of what you may not be imagining it. So what I think personal AI in 10 years is going to be for individual people is they are going to start discovering who they are, what they are, and tap into the unknowns of themselves without getting bogged down into that task that you would have to do today, just faster and efficient. So I think the long game will unlock that sort of potential, which we probably are too busy today to imagine it or to comprehend it, because we just want to do things 2x more faster.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that because we're bogged in the details of day-to-day living, we're missing the big patterns and the important things.
Yeah, you can consider that.
Yep.
And it's almost like, what does it mean to be exploring the unknown?
Yep. Well, the thing that I certainly feel the older I get, and I'm at a different stage of life to you, is that I'm going, I sort of, because we're brought up in a certain way, so we're locked into mindsets, we're locked into routines and habits and ways of thinking and preferences and priorities. And you're going, I just want to explode this because I just feel that there's so much untapped within me, but it's trapped within these goalposts of how we're brought up by our parents, how we're brought up by culture. And you just say, so I just really would like to actually go beyond that. And I would like to see bigger patterns emerge as well, because creativity is quite often lost in not being able to, and inventions and stuff is quite often done by connecting two disparate dots or 10.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, because we as humans are habitual creatures,
Mm-hmm.
and nurture has created us to be, like you're brought up in a certain religion, so you think a certain way until you don't.
Yep.
Brought about by a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you? So I'm part of me going, how can I explode my? You've sort of talked about it. How can I explode my thinking and connect a lot more dots and be more creative using AI? And maybe that's what you're starting to talk about with Personal.ai is you're blowing up the schoolyard by giving you a bigger vision of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the most interesting thing for me is, even for me personally, I've been building memory for the past 18 months or so. And of course, my AI is integrated into my life like right now. Um, and sometimes when my team communicates with me, or even family and members communicate with me, it does extract and construct things that are like so vivid for you, but it isn't until you actually see it.
Yes.
In other words, if I were to do that myself in that moment, it may not be as expressive and as vivid,
Yep.
because either I don't have the cognitive capacity to kind of think through, or I'm lazy in that moment, or I don't have time. I'm probably running around trying to do something else. But the AI, which is a machine that, has unlimited capacity, it has all my memory, and it never sleeps. Right? So it's almost like an extension to you. I mean, it goes back to some of the core thesis of personal AI. It is truly an extension to you, and I know it's mine. Nobody can touch it. Nobody can just take it. Nobody can shut down the service from me. It's a model of me that's gonna live in the cloud forever. Are you asked like, oh, somebody has to, keep that up and running? Well, no, because you have these devices at home now. You can download into the devices and keep that at home on a desk that people can talk to. That's the
So,
beauty, again, back to the technology and how efficient they are. And they can run on devices as well.
so where does this intelligence reside? Is it within a software app on a server? Is it on your computer? Where does this Personal.ai, where's its home?
Yeah, currently the model lives in the cloud, but soon enough you can download the model. And we also have it like device mechanism that we want to unlock. So I think it's a matter of time and all the technology in terms of like GPU capacity, as well as edge devices for the GPUs getting onto the phones. They're only working in our favor. So we know where AI is today, already, with the number of advancements that are happening. And there will be devices that will be living in our homes, like Alexa or Google Home, but that technically is made up of like your model, your mind. Um, so yeah.
So there's another question I have, which I brought up in our little pre-chat, was, okay, so I'm happy for maybe my Slack messages with my team to maybe public or available to the team, or maybe to the world, or Google Docs to the world. Okay. But if I'm doing a journal, right, it's a personal journal, it's just for me. How do we make sure that our privacy isn't, messages that you don't want the general world to see because you're just sharing your feelings and it's private and personal? And
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
so
yeah.
how do you put some guardrails around that?
Yep. I mean, control is probably the number one thing for this company. Not only control on your data, but also control on your model and how you structure it. So remember, this model is not automatically extracting data from your life without having you give it, right? So the way the system works is each AI, let's just say you, has multiple different personas. So Jeff has a personal life, Jeff has a work life, Jeff has a podcast life, Jeff has a media life, Jeff has an Australia life, or a chef life, however you want to call it, right? And each of those personas has these memories that probably has different levels of access, meaning your personal life or personal persona is only accessible to you and to you only, or maybe to your family if you would want to.
Yep.
And your podcast persona, well, guess what? It's public because everybody can benefit from, Jeff's podcast mind that anybody can interact with, like in terms of marketing. Or maybe there is a space that is Jeff's persona that is very only available to subscribers. It's like a closed club, because it has some secrets and some value or more value. So you can basically pick and choose and structure your AI according to your life.
Yep.
And control it that way.
Okay. So with Personal.ai, do you provide sort of a process to help you do that?
Yeah. So very good question. Currently, we have mostly the content, like educational content that is out there. We recently started our webinar series to provide a structured discovery on what your structure may be to go through that process. So the short answer is yes. And then, these webinars will be available on, most platforms. And the best way to learn is actually come to Personal AI and then talk to my own AI. It will give you some good structures as well.
Okay. So let's get into asking your AI. And then I'm curious about how you said the app looks like anything like WhatsApp and so on. In other words, it's design, or Slack, okay, for example. So if you ask someone asks your personal AI, you ask your personal AI, how does it come back to you? Is it a voice? Is it a video? Is it text?
It's text. It's text right now. And we are introducing voice pretty soon. And that voice will be the voice of you.
Right. So you'd be cloning voice, for example.
Yep. It's cloning minds and cloning voices. And in the future, when the avatars is good enough for cloning expressions of, like, physically, then yes.
Right. So essentially, you're going to be building a virtual you that will sound like you, look like you, as well as an evolution of where you're starting from.
That's right. And the convergence of voice and mind is already happening. Avatars need to happen. There is avatar technology as well that is possible to do that, but not at a scale where it can be available for everybody and we can make it cost effective. And one of our theses is also, we just don't want to serve the top 1% of the humanity, right? Like we are more interested in serving the 80% of people, like, everyday people.
Yep.
So that's kind of how we see the world.
So take us through maybe the process of starting the journey of training, of using Personal.ai. How would you start? And then, of course, you are then building it into your routine. So how would you start with Personal AI?
Yeah.
Personal AI.
Yeah. So I always suggest the following steps, right? Step one, you're going to define or figure out what the purpose of your AI is. The
Yep.
purpose of your AI may be different from the purpose of somebody else's AI. I will give a couple of examples. The purpose of Jeff's AI is to serve all the community or listeners of Jeff to have this interactive, continued experiences once they listen to a podcast, right? That's a purpose.
Yep.
Or the purpose could be, I would want to have an interactive experience into my mind for my family and for my friends today when I'm not available or forever into the future, you know. So once you set the purpose, then you're going to figure out, okay, for this particular purpose, what are the specific personas do I need to build? I may need to build a personal one for friends and family. I may need to build a podcaster persona for specific ones, or maybe you just have just one persona. Once you do have the persona, then you're going to start thinking about, okay, what is all the author content that makes sensible for me to upload into my memory. So that process would be anywhere from uploading your documents or uploading your existing YouTube videos, or maybe PDFs, or chat history. So I think there is a little bit of investment if you do have existing content for you to do that.
Yep.
And once you do that, well, it's time to put it to good use. Either it be generating content, or that it be simply inviting your, group, the community, the family, the friends into private chats so they can talk to you, also to your AI, in a text-like interface, which looks like Slack, you mentioned, and it also a mobile app is also available, which looks also like Slack or WhatsApp, if you will. So it's a messaging-like application, and the reason we have chosen that is people are very familiar with messaging interfaces. So the training is as simple as texting and adding memories, and using your AI is as simple as, well, texting and asking, having a conversation with somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's basically web-based as well as app-based. So you
Yep,
download.
it is web-based. It is app-based. It's native applications. There are integrations, meaning you can get a AI phone number for yourself as well.
Yep.
So that way people can text you. So you have your personal number, people can text your AI phone number, and you can do interesting things about forwarding your main text messages to your AI and have your AI in the loop.
Right.
But there is an API. Everybody gets an API, so it's almost like an IP address to you, right? So everybody gets a unique IP address and unique API key that they can technically drop your AI in any other places. But over a period of time, we'll make that process even more simpler in terms of integrations.
Right. So what integrations do you currently have into what platforms?
So we have SMS right now. We are able to release a embeddable web interface for websites.
Yep.
We are soon going to have WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger as well.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all the places that we see. We are currently motivated and seeing a lot of traction with small business brands. So this would be anywhere from authors, coaches, podcasters, consultants, marketers, agencies, if you will. They may not be enterprises. And the reason is these people have a personal moat, and their personal moat is personal data. That's their personal brand currency.
Yep.
And there's a good fit for what personal AI offers to these people, which is elevating and scaling your own brand.
Yep. Fascinating. So there's an app in the Android store and the Apple store?
Very soon.
Okay.
Very soon it will be in Android and Apple store. But it's already an app store, iOS app store. Android is gonna follow pretty soon.
Okay, but just in the US app store at this stage?
No, it should be in Australia as well.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So, okay, next question. What's the pricing model for Personal.ai?
What is what model?
The pricing model.
Pricing model. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. It's all based on the memory. So The cost to the company is based on, how, big is your model, as well as, how much use, you have out of your AI. So currently it's a subscription model. It starts with free. So you can try the product out. You can use it for human to human communication for free. There is no cost to like talking to other AIs. You can build memory up to 100. And I always encourage people to, do like the foundational, telling about your hobbies, your life, your preferences, your, professional background, like just who you are, like that interaction itself could go into that memory. And beyond that, there is a $15 price point for increasing, adding more memory. There is a $40 price point for unlimited memory as well. We do offer like a hands-on, very professional services that gets into, like custom solutions and, hundreds and hundreds of AIs, for uh, bigger organizations that has multiple different individuals and
Okay.
use cases. Yeah.
Okay. So essentially what you've done is you've created a minimal viable product to start with, and then you're building it out over time. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can think about it. This is a there's tons that is packed into the model. Technically, you can use it for many different use cases, from simple creating drafts of responses to your text messages to drafts to your email. But the beauty in here is like this is your mind, you know what I mean? So we see close to 60 to 70% acceptance on the draft messages on the
Right.
platform, because they are basically literally you. If it is in your memory, then in normal cases you probably don't have to change anything. Even if you want to change anything, it's probably like 20-30% of the change. And whenever you edit things, it goes back into reinforcement learning as well. So everything that you do is kind of like being learned.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we maybe mentioned, but maybe you can sum it up. What are the major uses you see for personal AI, your product?
Today, if you incorporate personal AI in your daily life, you probably would alter on how your outbound communication is done
Yes.
with ease, with sophistication, with high capacity, and reduced anxiety. So that's
Right.
kind of what I would say is like is a on target, on spot use case for us.
Okay. And so the other part of that was mentioned, I think, in your online video was it's essentially becomes an extension of you with supercharges your memory or basically and makes it easy to remember things.
Yep, that's ease. Totally.
Because as we know, as humans, some have got better memory than others. Some are born with a better memory, whereas AI then can give you a super memory effectively.
Yeah, supercharging like yourself, scaling yourself.
Yeah. And I find that rather exciting because I would have forgotten what some things I've written about over the last 13, 14, 15 years and create a lot of content. So, but I love the perspective too, is what can we do with this long term? I think it's playing the long game is pretty exciting as well.
Yeah, it'll be pretty fascinating. We have seen like anybody like north of thousand memories, they spend 3 to 4x more time on the platform and 3 to 4x more messages to their AI, as well as 3 to 4x more people in chats and in launches. We do have this concept of launches. We call them AI launches. And the most interesting thing is it's like your AI hanging out in a lounge, and you can have multiple different humans come in and collaborate with your AI simultaneously, but they're
Right.
also collaborating in with other humans as well.
Yep.
So, for me, it's a world. It's an AI world. It's a personal AI world. Like
Yeah.
every person is backed up with their own AI, and it is continuously learning and growing. Um, Maybe the future form factors will be different. Maybe there will be a metaverse. Maybe the interfaces will be different. But if you just have like slight imagination, like every person in personal AI is an AI in itself,
Yeah.
which I think is fascinating.
So you've been using your own product, obviously, for the last 18 months or for a while.
Yeah, more so in the last 6 to 9 months, because the interfaces and some of the application layer is it's so good. We don't use Slack anymore. We don't use WhatsApp anymore internally. So all the internal communication also happens in personal AI. But given everybody has their own personal AI as well, they're like all supercharged to your language. Yeah, they're all supercharged with their own AI.
Cool. So you've been using it, obviously, your own product.
Mm-hmm.
How has it changed you with using it every day?
Um,
Has it made
the
you more?
most,
Has it made you more conscious? Has it made you more aware? Is it?
I think it made me, I think it made me more curious. So I think the way I solve problems now is a little bit different. Earlier, I used to do a lot of like research and try to come up and synthesize my own ways.
Mhm.
Now, if there is a new concept, if there is a new thing as well, I simply go to my AI and tell my AI. And interestingly enough, it will draw conclusions. Like it will synthesize everything, like how this particular concept that I just like entered. After the podcast, you should go to my, to Personal AI and then join my autopilot lounge. You will find it in Discover.
Yep.
And sometimes I simply tell like new concepts and like Personal AI is the new medium for digital communication I just came up with because I was preparing the webinar. And it's like, that makes total sense. Uh, and then I have a 72% response from my AI, and why that makes total sense. That is based on fundamentally, synthesizing and justifying and all the things that I normally say on what Personal AI should be.
And it maybe recombines in ways that you will never
Exactly.
thought of.
No, it would probably take a long time. Even if I draw the same conclusions, probably take a long time. Um, then probably will not do a better job. I will probably not do a better job. So it
Yeah.
said, like today in the morning, I said Personal AI is a new medium for digital communication, and it said, I couldn't agree more. Personal AI is indeed revolutionized the way we communicate digitally. It has the potential to become new medium for all interactions, bringing us closer to human-like conversations with computers. Just like we had key moments in the history with the introduction of phones, internet, personal computers, smartphone, AI is now taking center stage. It allows us to unleash our creative potential and gain efficiencies in our digital communication. So it picked up like how I talk about the history of evolution in terms of like phones. There is a step function like everywhere: phones, internet, personal computer, and smartphones. So it used that concept into what I'm talking about, digital communication.
So what you're also saying is that it's putting things into new combinations that you would never have thought of on your own.
Mm-hmm. So my
I
ideation, my brainstorm happens with my AI now.
And that's exciting. So that essentially, that component especially, is amplifying your humanity
Mhm.
and creativity.
Yeah, yeah. I think once we done with the podcast, I'll share my screen because I'm actually watching live a conversation that is happening where
Right.
Jonathan is asking my AI, pitch Personal AI in 250 words or less.
Okay. So just to wrap it up, and I ask all my guests this, and what brings Suman the most joy? What task,
Oh, this is
most task or activity brings you the most joy, Suman?
the most joy for me is when my customers actually touch the product and see that magic. Because in almost all the cases, I don't know what it is with my companies. It's not like, oh, okay, I go to the tool and then immediately like, do a task done. There is in that process, in that journey, first 1 day or 7 days, there is a movement that is like, aha. Like
Mm.
it like literally happened over the weekend. I was talking to one of the guys in the lounge. It's like, you know what, man, I just realized a whole movement and why this is such an important and fundamental thing that we are doing it together here. So yeah, so that gives me more joy. That just like when people gain like value that they have never imagined, from a technology. I think it's very beautiful. That gives me energy.
Thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing the evolution of your platform and Personal.ai. I think I'm personally fascinated and very curious about the intersection of AI and humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm really also fascinated by is, and also want to make sure of at my end, is that it doesn't take away from my humanity, but enhances it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that social media started off as a platform that would connect us, but in the end, there's a big part of it now that's dividing us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been done by the algorithms that spread hate and
Mm-hmm.
divisiveness, polarization. So I think, and that's another whole question about AI, is the ethics of AI, which we really haven't touched on today. But
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure that I choose to use AI to enhance my humanity rather than being used by the AI or the apps. And
Yep.
that means sometimes not using them.
Yep.
Turning off your alert, putting your phone away, and let's have a conversation.
Yep. Totally.
So thank you, Suman, for your insights. It is been fabulous and inspiring, and I look forward to seeing the evolution of your company and as it brings magic to the world.
Thank you, Jeff. It's yeah, I enjoyed the conversation as well. So thanks a lot for having me. I look forward to seeing Jeff AI on your website.
We're about to do that. I'm making a note straight after this. Thanks, Suman.
All right. Okay, bye.